Chapter 40-37. I heard that. You've killed Li Yunyu. The leader of the group glared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with an unfriendly look on his face. His voice was filled with menace and coldness. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, who were initially confused, immediately understood what was going on when they heard the man's words. They were here for Li Yunyu. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. If this had been any other day, they would have admitted to it directly. However, at a time like this, they could tell that the other party was a troublesome person. If they admitted to it, they might end up having to fight here. At a time like this, they really did not have the luxury of time to do so. With just one look, they had reached a tacit understanding. I don't know what you're talking about, Di Beichen replied calmly. If there's nothing else, we still need to enter the ruins. Don't block the way. Just as he had spoken, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continued to move forward. They did not intend to have any further interactions with the other party. Just then, one of the cultivators in the group spoke up, Senior Brotherly, I saw it with my own eyes. They were the ones who had killed Li Yunyu. I'm not mistaken. The cultivator's eyes were fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Previously, he had happened to pass by and had witnessed Li Yunyu's entire group being destroyed by their hands. He had initially wanted to help, but the other party was simply too powerful. Hence, he had chosen to leave. Once he had returned, he had told Li Buyo about this. Ever since then, Li Buyo had come to the training grounds to look for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had never appeared. Until this time, when the ruins appeared, they finally encountered it. However, he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would refuse to admit to it. Li Buyo was a well-known figure in the Crimson Moon sect. Usually, he would not be able to come into contact with him at all. It was only after he had told Li Buyo about Li Yunyu's murder that Li Buyo had allowed him to enter the circle. If Li Buyo believed that he was lying, he would not be able to stay in the Crimson Moon sect any longer. Thinking of this, his heart felt extremely gloomy. The other party had been able to kill Li Yunyu and the others. No matter how one looked at it, they were true experts. They were clearly experts, but they refused to admit it at a time like this. What were they thinking? What? You don't dare to admit it? Li Buyo looked at Di Beichen coldly. I have people here who said that they saw you kill Li Yunyu. It's true that there's a lot of trouble when you're popular. Are you here to pick a fight? Shang Guanying took a step forward, her face cold. He said he saw it, so he saw it. If we say that we didn't kill him, why don't you believe us? Let me tell you, Hongzhuang is famous now. Many people want to get close to her, but there are also many people who want to cause trouble for her. We. Hearing Shang Guanying's words, Li Buyo and the others could not help but feel shocked. Initially, he had not believed Shang Guanying's words. However, Shang Guanying had suddenly said so much. He suddenly felt that Shang Guanying was not the type to lie. Could it be that he had made a mistake? Chapter 40-38. Not to mention Li Buyo, even Ren Ziheng and the rest were stunned by Shang Guanying's words. If they had not been involved in this matter and clearly knew that Li Yunyu had died in their hands, they would have thought that this had nothing to do with them after hearing Shang Guanying's words. Master, Yingying is becoming more and more powerful. Her ability to lie without thinking is almost on par with Xiren. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with surprise and admiration. In the past, she had thought that Yingying was a little impulsive. Now, Yingying was becoming more and more intelligent. It's all thanks to Xiren's good teachings. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but laugh. In a short period of time, Shang Guanying's improvement was really shocking. Her words were enough to confuse the other party. While the other party was still confused, Di Beichen immediately threw out a sentence, if you want to cause trouble for us, we welcome you. However, we have urgent matters to attend to now and we don't have the time. After speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest immediately left. Senior brother Li, I really didn't lie to you. I saw them kill Li Yunyu with my own eyes. However, I didn't expect them to lie. Qing Jianqing was so depressed that he was about to die. He had clearly told the truth, but judging from the situation, it was obvious that no one believed him. Li Buyo fell into silence and did not answer immediately. Instead, he said, "Forget it, we'll talk about this later. Let's enter the ruins first." After saying this, the cultivators behind him nodded. At this time, entering the ruins was the most important thing. Qing Jianqing followed behind Li Buyo, but his heart had quietly sunk. If Li Buyo did not believe him, he would not be able to stay in the Crimson Moon sect in the future. This was not a situation that he wanted to see. If he had known earlier, he would not have told Li Buyo about this. At least he would have been able to stay in the Crimson Moon sect peacefully. "Yingying, you're becoming more and more intelligent," Bailey Hongzhuang praised. Hearing this, the smile on Shengguan Yingying's face widened. "I had a sudden inspiration. Fortunately, the effect is not bad." He. Senior brother Ren, do you know who this person is? Di Beichen looked at Ren Ziheng. He did not know much about the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect. Clearly, Ren Ziheng knew more about them than they did. Ren Ziheng nodded. This person is Li Yunyu's older brother, named Li Buyo. The reason why Li Yunyu could have such a status and reputation in the Crimson Moon sect was because of his brother, Li Buyo. Li Buyo was a true expert of the Crimson Moon sect. He was powerful and righteous. Hence, he had a resounding reputation in the Crimson Moon sect. There were many cultivators who followed him. I thought that no one would know that we killed Li Yunyu, so I didn't take it to heart. But I didn't expect that someone would see this scene. This matter has become much more complicated. Is this Li Buyo very strong? Mo Yinjue's eyes were deep, his voice cold. That's right. It's said that his cultivation has already surpassed the 5th level of the astral radiance realm. It can be said that he's extremely powerful. Normally, no one is willing to offend him. Chapter 40-39. Listening to Ren Ziheng's introduction to Li Buyo, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' hearts sank a little. Star Radiance Stage 5, this kind of strength was indeed extremely tyrannical. Even in Penglai Palace, cultivators with this kind of strength were first-class powerhouses. Most importantly, when Li Buyo and the others came over just now, they had already noticed that the size of the other party's team was really not ordinary. If Li Buyo found trouble with them now, then it would really cause them a lot of trouble. Then we'd better enter the ruins as soon as possible. It's best to get rid of Li Buyo as soon as possible. Otherwise, with this guy here, we really have no fate with the ruins. Wen Ziren couldn't help but say. With such a great opportunity in front of them, they couldn't miss it just like that. Even if they really couldn't avoid it in the future, they would have to solve it in the future. At this time, they couldn't afford any delay. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Li Buyo is also very confused now. For a while, he still can't judge whether what we said is true or false, so we still have a chance. But, once he comes back to his senses, I'm afraid it won't be so simple. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two quietly looked at each other. They didn't have any wishful thinking in their hearts. The mentality of a powerhouse was that they would rather kill by mistake than let go. Since that was the case, as long as there was a slight possibility, the other party would kill them to avenge Li Yunyu. This didn't affect everyone's speed. Under the charge of a group of cultivators, they quickly passed through the obstruction of the skeleton army and continued to approach the ruins. Li Buyo's strength was extremely tyrannical. In addition to the size of his team, when the combat power fully erupted, it could be said that they were the fastest team. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also pulled away from them as they moved forward. Bang bang bang. Under the collision of countless energy, Li Buyo and the others were the first to approach the ruins. The restriction had long disappeared, so they walked directly to the entrance of the ruins without any obstruction. Noticing this scene, a touch of envy suddenly appeared in the eyes of the cultivators who were still fighting. The other party had already seized the opportunity and the chances of obtaining the treasure would be higher. Li Buyo and the others stood in front of the door and were somewhat hesitant. After all, no one knew what kind of situation they would encounter after opening this door. Finally, they pushed open the black door. Rumble. The heavy sound of the door opening rang out. Li Buyo and the others all retreated a distance, guarding against any possible attacks that might appear in the ruins. However, after the door opened, there was no movement at all. Seeing this, Li Buyo and the others couldn't help but look at each other before walking inside together. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were not slow either. Not long after Li Buyo and the others entered, they also entered the ruins. With the other party leading the way, they naturally didn't have to worry about any traps near the door. They immediately walked in. Darkness. It was still boundless darkness. Not only was the exterior of the building black, even the interior was black. The black bricks and the black totem emitted a demonic darkness and mystery. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also had a trace of seriousness and nervousness on their faces. Chapter 40. Damn, isn't this building a little too strange? I can feel the hairs on my body standing on end. Chu Jinfeng rubbed his hands together and shook his body. As soon as he walked in, he felt a cold breeze blow past him. It felt as if he had walked into a haunted house. Hearing Chu Jinfeng's words, the others could not help but shrink their necks. In fact, their feelings were exactly the same as Chu Jinfeng's. This ruin is strange indeed. The ruins that we've seen in the past were all very bright. It's nothing like this ruin. It's pitch black and makes one's heart flutter. Xiao Hei could not help but mutter. This eerie feeling really made one's scalp go numb. The power of darkness itself is black. If it were a bright ruin, it would be unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly spoke up as her eyes scanned her surroundings vigilantly. Ever since she found out that this ruin was related to the power of darkness, she felt that this ruin should not be underestimated. Now that she had entered, her feeling became even more profound. Therefore, she paid attention to every step she took to prevent herself from falling into a trap. Di Beichen took out a luminous pearl and illuminated the path in front of everyone. After taking a look, everyone realized that there was a path with no end in front of them. It was deep and pitch black as if there was no end to it. Wow, this path is so long. It's really eerie. Xiren could not help but sigh. When one was walking in the dark, the darker it was, the longer the path felt. I remember that we entered the ruin not much later than Li Buyo and the others. Why haven't we seen any traces of them? Ren Zimei looked in front of her. The path was pitch black and they could not hear any sound at all. It was really strange. As soon as she said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but look at each other. Their expressions became complicated. Indeed, according to what we've seen, this path is very long. The other party did not enter this path much earlier than us either. We should have been able to hear their movements. However, ever since we entered, it seems that only our voices could be heard. Regardless of whether it's the front or the back, we couldn't hear anything at all. This is rather strange. Mo Yinjue's deep and enchanting eyes flashed with the light of contemplation. The situation in front of him was indeed not right. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but stop in her tracks. If Li Buyo and the others moved very quickly and left us far behind in a short period of time, that is not impossible. However, this matter is indeed a little strange. Why don't we wait here for a while and see if there will be any cultivators behind us? This is the only way to judge this matter now. Di Beichen nodded. Let's wait for a while. After making this decision, Ren Ziheng and the others did not object. They just stayed where they were. However, after waiting for a while, they still did not hear the slightest movement. Everyone understood. Looks like we're the only ones here. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was firm. Logically speaking, the cultivators should be entering the ruins one after another. It was impossible for them to not hear anything after waiting for a while. Chapter 40-41. What do you mean? Ren Zimei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in confusion. Seeing that they had a tacit understanding, she was confused. Are you saying that we're the only ones here? That's impossible. Everyone had entered the ruins, so how could they be the only ones here? Looking at Ren Zimei's confused look, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but smile. Senior Sister Ren, we should have entered the small world set up by the owner of the ruins. There are actually many cultivators around us, but we can't see them. I see. Only then did Ren Zimei understand. She suddenly felt a little embarrassed. She was clearly the senior sister, but she knew less than her junior sister. Junior Sister Bailey, you know a lot of things. I'm really ashamed. Senior Sister Ren, don't belittle yourself. We just happen to know because we've seen it before. What should we do now? Ren Ziheng's eyes darkened. He did not have much experience in ruins. Now that he knew the situation, what should they do next? We have to find a way out of here. Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around and knocked on the ground and walls around them. She did not find anything special and could not help but say, there's nothing around here. Why don't we continue to move forward and see if we can find anything? Okay. Because they had discovered this very early, they did not have to move forward for long. Therefore, they could only continue to move forward and see if they could find anything. After making this decision, everyone continued to move forward. However, they did not move as quickly as before. They only paid attention to the situation around them as they walked. However, after walking for a long time, they did not find anything. Everyone could not help but frown. At the same time, Li Boyo and the others who had entered the ruins were in the same situation. They were confused by the scene in front of them and could not find a breakthrough at all. Why is it like this? Li Boyo stopped in his tracks. Based on what they had seen before, the ruins were indeed huge. However, they had been walking for so long that they had long exceeded the range of what they could see. Senior Brother Li, something is wrong with the situation, the cultivator behind him also said. Let's stop and think about it. This situation is a little different from what we thought. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others slowed down and carefully observed their surroundings. This situation is really strange. It seems that there's no use for us to continue walking. Mo Yunjue said. Let's stop and think about the situation around us. There must be some places that we have not found. Di Beichen looked at everyone and suggested. Everyone nodded. They had been walking for so long and they had not found anything. By now, there was no point to continue walking. Since that was the case, it was better to think about where the problem was. Otherwise, it would be useless to just waste his energy. For a time, everyone stopped where they were and looked at the walls around them. However, the walls were all paved with black bricks, and he couldn't see any difference at all. Chapter 40-42. However, no matter how hard Bailey Hongzhuang knocked on the surrounding bricks, she did not notice any difference. This place is so strange. We've been searching for so long, but why haven't we found anything? Shengguan Yingying looked puzzled. She had always heard that there were various unexpected situations in the ruins, but there should be traces to follow. The situation in front of them was completely baffling and they did not know where to start. It's indeed a little strange. Xiren nodded. There's nothing here except for the walls. Moreover, there's nothing special about the walls. Where are we going to find a way to crack it? This is my first time entering the ruins, so I can't give any good suggestions. Ren Ziheng frowned. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had not discovered that this was a small world, he did not know how long it would have taken him to figure it out. He was completely baffled by the current situation and had absolutely no idea what to do. Everyone, please calm down. Since the owner of the ruins has set up all of this, there must be a way to crack it. If you want to obtain the treasures in the ruins, you must pay a price. Let's search carefully. Maybe we'll miss some details. Di Beichen calmed everyone's emotions. The more confused they were, the easier it was for them to become anxious. Once they became anxious, it would be even more difficult to find anything. Therefore, they must first suppress this negative emotion. Only by calming down would they be able to find something. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Ren Ziheng and the others nodded. The anxiety in their eyes quietly dissipated. Everyone began to check their surroundings patiently. Bailey Hongzhuang felt the wall in front of her with both hands. There were only these things here. Presumably, they would have to start from this wall. After carefully feeling around, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly said, "Beichen, there seems to be a small sunken spot on this wall." Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone could not help but come closer. They looked curiously at the spot that Bailey Hongzhuang was pointing at. After taking a closer look, everyone's faces were full of surprise. Indeed, there is a sunken spot here. The sunken spot was very small. If they did not reach out to feel it carefully, it was very likely that they would have missed it. But this spot is not a mechanism. What does a sunken spot mean? Ao Lingxiao's eyes were full of thoughts. Although there was a trace of discovery, what was the use of it? At this moment, Shangguan Yingying's voice rang out. I found a spot here too. Yes, there is one here too. Ren Zimei followed. After discovering these small dots one after another, everyone ruled out the possibility that they were accidental. Even if the stone was slightly damaged, it was impossible for several small dots to appear in one area. It was very likely that the key lay in these small dots. The next moment, Mo Yinjue took out some fluorescent powder from his Qiankuan bag and sprinkled it on the small dot. The small dot became bright in the darkness. Let's find these dots and see if they can give us any hints, Mo Yinjue said. Chapter 40-43. Small dots were discovered one after another, and everyone used fluorescent powder to mark these small dots. In the end, everyone realized that the number of dots was not small. It was not until the last dot was marked out that they realized that the glowing dots were like fireflies all around them. There are no more dots. We found all of them, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Shangguan Yingying immediately sat on the ground and looked at the dots on the three walls. Her eyes were filled with amazement. Hongzhuang, you're really amazing. You're so careful that you can even find these dots. If it were me, I'm afraid that I would only think that these are traces left behind by the erosion of time. Ren Zimei nodded repeatedly, yes, who would have thought that these dots would be the key to solving the mystery? Ordinary people would overlook them. Fortunately, I came with you. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I would have to stay in this dark path forever and never be able to get out. I just have some experience and know that I can't overlook anything. That's why I was able to find them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. After exploring the ruins several times, she already understood that many details that people usually overlook were often the key to solving the mystery. Perhaps every owner of the ruins would have this idea, so her observation was especially meticulous. However, these dots look disorderly. I don't know what they mean. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head and looked at the flickering dots around her. Her pretty face was filled with confusion. These disorderly dots could not give them any hints at all. If she was not sure that there were so many dots around her, she would not even think that these were hints at all. Observe carefully. Maybe there is some pattern in these dots that we haven't found yet. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's little hand. It's already very amazing that you can find the existence of these dots. Hearing Di Beichen's gentle and doting words, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart warmed and the corners of her lips could not help but curl up slightly. As long as Di Beichen was by her side, she would feel extremely at ease. Next, everyone began to stare at these dots. However, the existence of these dots was too messy, and they couldn't make any connections at all. I only feel countless fireflies flying around in front of me. They're making me dizzy. Chu Jinfeng could not help but rub his head with both hands. He felt that his brain was a mess and he could not understand the meaning of these things. Who knows what these things are for? I don't understand at all. Ren Zimei also looked frustrated. This kind of thing was too brain-draining. She thought of everything she could think of, but she still couldn't find anything. Sheng Guaniying couldn't help but look at Wen Ziren. Seeing that Wen Ziren and the others were still staring at these dots with serious expressions, she dismissed the idea of speaking. If it were them, they would not be able to find any clues. Time gradually passed. In this silent darkness, no one knew how much time had passed. But according to their judgment, it was probably 3 days. Chapter 40-44. Master, have you discovered anything? Xiao He rubbed her stiff neck. Her round little face was filled with confusion and helplessness. I've been looking at it for so long that my neck is sore, but I haven't discovered anything special. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. Her bright moon-like eyes were also filled with confusion and bewilderment. The arrangement of these little dots is just too strange. No matter how I look at it, I can't connect them together. Even the 8 diagrams don't seem to have such an arrangement. On the contrary, I feel that it looks like we're looking at a sky full of stars. These little dots are just like the arrangement of the stars. They're very random and untraceable. In the past 3 days, she had thought of everything that she could think of. However, the results still made her feel extremely helpless. Wife, what did you just say? Di Beichen suddenly turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. His dark and deep eyes were shining brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. I said that these arrangements are untraceable. That's not right. Di Beichen shook his head. His expression was full of seriousness. There's another sentence before that. These little dots are just like the arrangement of the stars. They're untraceable. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about what she had said before. It seemed to be this sentence. Di Beichen's eyes lit up. He clasped his hands together and his voice was filled with surprise. That's right. That's the sentence. What does that mean? Sheng Guaniying could not help but look at Di Beichen. In fact, she felt the same as Hongzhuang. They both felt as if they were looking at the stars. However, what was the problem? I vaguely feel that we've imagined the arrangement of these little dots to be too complicated. Perhaps these little dots were not arranged according to any special pattern at all. They were just casually arranged by the owner of the ruins. Stars. Perhaps this is the sky full of stars. After saying this, Di Beichen seemed to have opened up a new train of thought. His deep and bright eyes once again looked at the stars and fell into deep thought. Looking at this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. Looking at the situation, it was obvious that Di Beichen already had an idea. Perhaps Beichen is right. We've been trying to figure out what kind of pattern these little dots follow. Perhaps these little dots don't have any pattern at all, and were just randomly created by the owner of the ruins. Perhaps if we think about it in another direction, we'll gain something unexpected, Mo Yinjue pondered and said. In fact, he had also been observing for 3 whole days without finding anything. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Right now, she really couldn't find any pattern. Vaguely, she also felt that Di Beichen's judgment was right. Most importantly, she saw confidence on Di Beichen's face. Every time Di Beichen revealed such an expression, it meant that he had found something. She believed that Di Beichen would definitely find a way to solve this problem. Everyone only saw that Di Beichen had been staring at the starry sky. There was no longer a blank look on his face. On the contrary, there was a hint of confidence in his heart. Ren Ziheng and the others looked at each other. They had not found anything so far. Even after listening to the conversation between Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they still could not figure out where the breakthrough was. Chapter 40-45. Di Beichen and the others looked as if they had been enlightened, but they had been confused ever since they came in. They were clearly senior brothers, but it was Di Beichen and the others who had been leading the way. On the contrary, they seemed to have not discovered anything since they came here. This was too frustrating. Normally, Ren Zimei would never admit it if others said this to her. However, after seeing this scene, she had no choice but to admit it. No wonder Di Beichen and the others could improve their cultivation so quickly. This level of understanding was much stronger than theirs. Fortunately, we came in with junior brother Di and the others. Otherwise, just thinking about it would be enough for us to bear. Chu Jinfeng shrugged. In the past, he had always hoped to have the opportunity to explore the ruins. Now, it seemed that he was lucky that he had not encountered the ruins before. Otherwise, he would have lost his life. Time passed by slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang also tried to observe these small dots using the method Di Beichen had mentioned. As she entered a meditative state, she had a different feeling than before. She felt as if she was in the middle of a galaxy. A strange and mysterious feeling surrounded her, containing the complicated laws of heaven and earth. Di Beichen's gaze focused on these small dots. However, his gaze had already penetrated these small dots and looked deeper. Countless stars floated in front of his eyes. Finally, they dissipated one by one. All the stars were connected and finally merged into one point. That's right. That's it. Di Beichen's voice suddenly rang out, startling Wen Ziren and the others who were deep in thought. Everyone looked at Di Beichen. Could it be that Di Beichen had discovered the mystery of this place? Bailey Hongzhuang was immersed in the countless stars. She only felt that the originally extremely complicated stars were dissipating bit by bit. The pattern was becoming simpler and simpler, however, just as Di Beichen's voice fell, the light dots in front of everyone's eyes suddenly dissipated. Then, the scene in front of them changed. In their line of sight, the originally deep and dark path had disappeared. A large hall appeared in front of everyone. Obviously, they had left the small world from before. Bailey Hongzhuang also opened her eyes. Looking at the scene in front of her, her eyes were filled with faint joy. I see. She had also discovered some clues to the solution. However, Di Beichen's solution speed was much faster than hers. Therefore, he had led them out of the small world first. Di Beichen's lips curled into a faint smile. Looks like my wife has also discovered the solution. Not as fast as you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly. Beichen's perception was very strong, so she was also very happy. If my wife hadn't reminded me, I'm afraid I don't know when I would have figured this out. Di Beichen's gaze towards Bailey Hongzhuang became increasingly gentle. Previously, all of them had fallen into a misconception. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't mentioned this point, they probably wouldn't have been able to wake up from the previous scene. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I just couldn't figure it out. That's why I had no choice but to use this analogy. You were the one who discovered it first. You two don't have to be modest with each other. You two are the best. As expected of husband and wife. Chapter 40-46. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen could not help but smile at each other. Indeed, they were the most compatible. There's a large hall in front. Why don't we go and take a look? Bailey Hongzhuang suggested. Everyone nodded. Everyone wanted to know what kind of treasures were in the ruins. The sooner they arrived, the higher their chances of obtaining them. I think our speed is already considered fast. I'm afraid there aren't many people faster than us. When Xiren's face rippled with a thoughtful light. Their speed was definitely not slow. After all, they had discovered that they had entered the small world not long after entering. Although it took some time to find the small it was definitely not slow overall. In addition, Di Beichen's comprehension was already very high, but he still took such a long time. Presumably, the others would not be much faster. That's right. Maybe we've already seized the opportunity. Ren Ziheng agreed. Let's go and take a look. There might be treasures in the large hall. In the next moment, everyone quickened their pace and walked forward. However, although they were fast, they did not let their guard down. After all, no one knew if there would be unknown dangers here. If they were to fall into danger because of a moment of carelessness, it would be terrible. Fortunately, it was safe all the way. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others successfully walked into the large hall. However, when they arrived at the large hall, they found that it was empty. There was nothing inside. Seeing this, everyone could not help but feel puzzled. They thought that they would find some treasures after breaking out of the small world. They did not expect to find nothing. Could it be that we're late and the treasures here have already been taken away? Ren Zimei could not help but ask. There shouldn't be nothing in such a big place. If that's the case, then only the most famous experts in the three forces can do this. Ren Ziheng's face was somewhat emotional. I just hope it's not Li Buyo and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. It was still the same black wall tiles. However, there was a faint trace of gold on these wall tiles, revealing a bit of magnificence and nobility. It seemed that the owner of this ruin was also a wealthy person, because she could see that the golden color on the bricks was the real gold. Using gold to decorate these bricks and decorating them in such a low-key manner, it could be seen that the craftsman's taste was not bad. This place is so strange. Shengguan Yingying looked around and saw the surroundings clearly. She couldn't help but say, the path we took leads to this hall and there's no other path. Could it be that we've walked into a dead end? Impossible. After hearing Shengguan Yingying's guess, Di Beichen had already made his judgment. This is definitely not a dead end. I'm afraid there's something fishy going on here. Mo Yinjue nodded. Looks like the owner of this ruin really likes to set up checkpoints. Up until now, we haven't seen anything, but we have to keep breaking through them. It's probably a hobby of the owner of the ruins. Ao Lingxiao spread out his hands. The characteristics of the ruins indicated the personality of the owner of the ruins. The ruins were completely created by him, so the layout of the ruins was naturally up to him. Chapter 40-47. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. That means that the way to find the next path should be in this grand hall. Everyone, look carefully and see if there are any special places. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the crowd did not delay any longer and started to search. After the first experience, everyone was no longer as lost as before. On the contrary, everyone was able to calm down and pay attention to their surroundings. Even such a small dot could be the key to passing the stage, then they had to be extremely careful. However, at this moment, Mo Yinjue pointed to a protruding rock in front of the grand hall and said, "Do you guys think the switch should not be this rock, right?" Once this was said, everyone's gaze fell onto the rock. Indeed, that rock was clearly protruding. Although at first glance it was impossible to discover its existence, but after a closer look, one would be able to discover it. If it's this. Isn't it a little too simple? Shang Guanying could not help but scratch her head. According to the previous experience, passing the stage should be extremely complicated. If it was such an obvious mechanism, then it felt a little different from what they had imagined. Everyone looked at each other and were momentarily unable to make up their minds. Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the front of the mechanism and after examining it carefully, she could not help but say, "This mechanism is really too obvious. Could it be that it is not a mechanism to pass the stage, but a dangerous mechanism?" Everyone fell into silence. Bailey Hongzhuang said the same thing that they were thinking about. This was indeed very possible. With such an obvious mechanism, anyone who looked carefully would be able to notice it. Compared to the previous situation, this was really too simple. Why don't we first look around to see if there are any other mechanisms? If we don't find any, then we can try this mechanism. What do you guys think? Di Beichen suggested. All right. Everyone agreed. This was the most reliable method. Following this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest of the 9 people started to search around. However, no matter how they searched, they did not find anything. In the end, everyone's gaze locked onto the obvious mechanism. Looks like we can only try this mechanism, Mo Yunjue said calmly. Then let's give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Everyone has to be extra careful. Problems can happen at any time. A solemn expression appeared on everyone's faces. After Mo Yunjue pressed the mechanism, everyone carefully paid attention to their surroundings, wary of any unforeseen events that might occur. Ka ka ka. All they heard was the sound of a mechanism turning. Immediately after, everyone was surprised to find that a large door had opened on their right. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. It can't be. Is this mechanism really that simple? Shang Guanying couldn't help but be speechless. I'm starting to wonder if there are 2 masters in this ruin. Their styles are just too different. Chu Jinfeng shrugged, but he couldn't help but smile. After all, he had found the next path. Ren Ziheng also relaxed a little. No matter what, as long as we know what to do next, it's good. Chapter 40-48. This was because there was an army of skeletons behind the door. Heavens, what's going on? How could there be so many skeletons? Shang Guanying cried out in surprise as her face sank. At a rough glance, the skeletons in front of them numbered in the thousands. Compared to the 9 of them, the disparity was too great. I take back what I've said earlier. There must be only one owner in this ruin and the owner of this ruin must be very abnormal. Chu Jinfeng stared blankly at the same spot. In his line of sight was another enormous hall. This hall was 10 times bigger than the hall they were in. An army of over 1,000 skeletons was gathered there, forming a black mass. This feeling was simply suffocating. Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but swallow his saliva. This scene was indeed a little shocking. At that moment, he even felt that his mind was in a complete mess. He couldn't think of what to do next. Could it be that the mechanism really isn't a mechanism to pass the trial, but a dangerous mechanism? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Although the scene in front of her was extremely shocking, she still managed to calm down. After all, there was no use in being anxious at this time. If they had found the wrong mechanism, then they must find the right mechanism in order to have any hope of leaving this place. Otherwise, when faced with this army of over 1,000 skeletons, they would be exhausted to death by taking turns to fight them. Look, there's a passageway on the right side of the hall opposite us. Mo Yinjue's sharp eyes noticed the situation in the hall and immediately pointed it out. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked in the direction Mo Yinjue was pointing at. Indeed, as he had said, there was a passageway there. This means that this army of skeletons in front of us is very likely to be a test for us. Only after passing through this army of skeletons can we reach the rear, Di Beichen said in a low voice. There are so many skeletons. With just the 9 of us, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. Xiren frowned. If a large group of cultivators had appeared together to deal with these skeletons, it would be possible for them to pass the trial. However, there were only 9 of them. Even if their abilities were not bad, it was almost impossible for them to pass through this situation. At that moment, everyone's heart sank. This was simply an impossible task. The skeleton army didn't give Bailey Hongzhuang and the others any time to think. They immediately rushed towards them. The sound of heavy and orderly footsteps could be heard. All the skeletons seemed to treat them as intruders. Their eyes flickered with a demonic glint, and they only wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. What should we do? Ren Zimei couldn't help but exclaim. Looking at the skeleton army that was constantly rushing over, she felt an indescribable pressure. There's no other way. We can only give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang said in a deep voice. It wasn't easy for him to get here, so he definitely couldn't give up just like that. She believed that since the owner of the ruins had made such an arrangement, there must be a possibility of breaking through. Otherwise, the ruins would be dead and useless. Let's give it a try. Di Beichen said. After seeing how determined Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were, everyone gave up on the idea of running away. Chapter 40-49. In the next moment, vigorous primary energy exploded from everyone's bodies as their contracted beasts came out to help in the battle. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest faced the incoming skeleton army with burning fighting spirit in their eyes as they fully unleashed their strongest combat power. Bang! Bang bang bang! One after another, martial arts techniques were unleashed from Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. However, when they unleashed their martial arts techniques, everyone restrained themselves. This was because they were in the ruins and not in the outside world. If the destructive power of their martial arts techniques was too great, it was very likely that they would directly destroy the ruins. If the ruins were turned into ruins, then they would naturally be buried here. This undoubtedly caused everyone to be somewhat restrained. Bailey Hongzhuang took out her 9-tailed zither as her pitch-black phoenix eyes flickered with a bright luster. I'll try to use sound waves to attack in a straight line. Our goal is not to destroy all these skeletons, but to head to the passage over there. Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion undoubtedly brought a glimmer of hope to everyone and they immediately nodded, all right. This was the only way that had the highest success rate at the moment. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to pass through so many skeletons. The sound of the zither poured out from Bailey Hongzhuang's 5 fingers. The pleasant sound of the zither was a nightmare to the skeletons. However, after exchanging blows, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest realized that these skeletons were much stronger than the skeletons they had encountered outside. These skeletons are too strong. With my strength, I can't break through at all. Shangguan Yingying's pretty face could not help but reveal a trace of panic. Originally, when she faced skeletons in the training grounds, although they were not considered to be extremely strong, at least she had no problem dealing with them. Previously, when she was outside the ruins, she had already felt a great increase in pressure. However, she now realized that the skeletons in the ruins were much stronger than before. Facing skeletons of such strength, it was simply a problem for her to persevere. When Xiren stood beside Shangguan Yingying, the two of them had to join forces to resist the skeleton's attacks. However, this was only a temporary defense. It was simply too difficult to pass through all of this under such circumstances. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but walk over to Shangguan Yingying's side. At the same time, Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue also went to help Chu Jinfeng and the others. They were all at the Astral Radiance realm, so they could still put up a fight against these skeletons. However, cultivators below the astral radiance realm would have a hard time dealing with these skeletons. The skeletons outside have only been nourished outside the ruins for a period of time, and their strength has increased so much. These skeletons have been staying in the ruins for who knows how many years. Naturally, their strength is extraordinary. Di Baichen's expression was solemn. Based on the current situation, they only had one path, but this path was so difficult that it was difficult to choose. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood why Ao Lingxiao had said that to enter the upper realm, one had to be at the astral radiance realm or above. Otherwise, those below the astral radiance realm would not be able to pass through the group of skeletons. Thinking about it, the skeletons in the upper realm were about the same as the skeletons in front of them. Let's try our best to charge through. If we really can't, we'll give up. Chapter 40-50. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was very interested in the inheritance of the ruins, they had to consider the big picture. Apart from the three of them who had already broken through to the Starlight Realm, the others obviously felt a huge pressure. In comparison, they would rather not enter the ruins and have everyone be safe. After all, they were a team, and no one was willing to see their teammates get injured because they were risking their lives. Di Baichen nodded, okay. Compared to the lives of Xiren and the others, the inheritance was not that important. Mo Yinjue did not speak. To him, this kind of thing was not within the scope of his consideration. In fact, he, who grew up in the heavenly slaughter tower, did not have such emotions. The most important thing was his own interests. Giving up his own interests for the sake of everyone was undoubtedly an extremely stupid move to him. However, the only one he cared about was Bailey Hongzhuang. No matter what decision Bailey Hongzhuang made, he had no objections. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others make such a decision, Xiren and the others felt even more pressure in their hearts. No one would be willing to give up such a good opportunity. However, just because they were holding back, they had implicated Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to give up as well. They felt that they had let down Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. In the next moment, Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren could not help but look at each other, and then nodded affirmatively. Then, the two of them displayed their strongest martial skills together. Bang! An astonishing wave spread out, causing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who were fighting to turn their gazes away. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. They did not expect Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying to be able to burst out with such an attack. After the two of them displayed their joint martial skill, an incomparably tyrannical force appeared. Then, the skeletons in the line in front of them turned into powder. Quick! Let's move forward. Xiren hurriedly said. Right now, the only thing they could do was to seize this opportunity and move forward quickly. After opening up a gap, they would quickly close in. Otherwise, if they were delayed, they would really have no strength left. Even though everyone was shocked by the might of Xiren and Wen Xinya's combined martial skill, they knew that now was not the time to be concerned about this point. Immediately, their figures flashed and they quickly rushed into the middle of the skeleton army. As they walked into the center, the pressure from the skeletons from all directions increased. Instantly, everyone formed a circle with their backs against each other and moved forward together. From the moment they chose to break into the encirclement, they already had no way out. Just as they were moving forward with all their might, a commotion suddenly came from ahead. Rumble! One of the walls of the hall where the skeleton army was located was suddenly opened. This scene was similar to what they had experienced before. Then, a conversation not far away entered their ears. I didn't expect that the mechanism to lead to the next place would actually be here. This is great. In my opinion, we must be the fastest team. The other cultivators' speed can't be compared to ours. Of course. Don't you know who's leading our team? Even the sect leader praised senior brother Li's comprehension. If it wasn't for Senior Brotherly leading us, I'm afraid we wouldn't know how long we would be trapped in that damned place. Chapter 40-51. Listening to their conversation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They secretly guessed that this so-called Senior Brotherly couldn't be the Li Buyo they didn't want to see, right? If that was the case, it would be too much of a coincidence. As the door gradually opened, the appearance of the cultivator inside also appeared in the line of sight of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. It was really a small world. The person they didn't want to meet the most just happened to meet him. It can't be, right? How can it be so coincidental? We just wanted to avoid Li Buyo, and this guy just happened to meet us. Shangguan Yingying looked helpless. It wasn't easy to deceive Li Buyo before. No one knew when this Li Buyo would figure everything out and come back to his senses. If this guy suddenly figured out how to deal with them, then it would be troublesome. The heavens don't do as we wish. The heavens really don't open their eyes. Chu Jinfeng couldn't help but sigh. Looking at Shangguan Yingying and Chu Jinfeng's helpless appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Actually, this is also expected. Li Buyo's strength is so tyrannical, it can be seen that his comprehension is also very high. Now, the cultivator teams that can break through here are all strong teams. It's normal for him to appear here. Usually, the comprehension of strong cultivators was not low. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to achieve such achievements at such a young age. Therefore, it was reasonable for Li Buyo to be able to comprehend it so quickly. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ren Ziheng and the others couldn't help but nod. There were only a few possibilities for the cultivators to appear here. As long as they were fast enough, it could be said that it was inevitable for them to meet Li Buyo and the others. But it's good that these guys appeared. It's too much pressure for us to deal with these skeletons alone. With them here, they can naturally share some of the pressure. In a way, this guy can be considered to have helped us a little. Di Beichen said with a faint smile. Li Buyo obviously did not expect to meet Bailey Hongzhuang and the others here. Seeing them surprised him even more than seeing the group of skeletons. The faces of the cultivators who had said that Li Buyo would be the first batch to arrive turned ugly to behold. They had wanted to flatter Li Buyo. Unexpectedly, someone else had arrived before them. Their faces could not help but turn ugly to behold. Li Buyo naturally thought of this as well. His expression revealed some embarrassment, and a layer of haze quietly covered his eyes. Previously, he did not pay much attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and her team. After all, this team was not large. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was quite famous, that was only in the field of medical skills. He had never paid much attention to her strength. However, such a small team that he had overlooked had actually arrived here faster than them. This was something that he found hard to accept. Isn't this Bailey Hongzhuang and others from Penglai Palace? I didn't expect to meet him again so soon. Why are there so many skeletons? They are completely surrounded by these skeletons. The cultivators in the team quickly focused their attention on these skeletons. After all, their main purpose now was to seize the inheritance in this ruin. The most important thing was to find the next place. Chapter 40-52. At the same time, Li Buyo also sized up the situation in front of him. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were able to arrive here earlier than them, it proved that they were true geniuses. Their comprehension was actually stronger than his. The other party would definitely not appear there for no reason. If they wanted to escape, they would definitely have a chance. Thinking of this, Li Buyo carefully sized up his surroundings. With this observation, he suddenly realized that there was a passage behind the skeleton army. According to the position of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it was obvious that they wanted to pass through the skeleton army and head to the passage. I see. Li Buyo suddenly understood and could not help but sigh in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were only 9 people. Facing the skeleton army of thousands, they actually had the courage to charge forward. Just this courage alone was amazing. If it was an ordinary team, they would probably have lost the confidence to continue fighting after seeing such a huge skeleton army. At this moment, Li Buyo also changed his previous neglect of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. For them to be able to do this, it could be said that their courage was commendable. They were really not ordinary people. Perhaps his younger brother had really died in their hands because it was impossible for ordinary cultivators to kill Li Yunyu. Let's speed up and enter the passage as well. Li Buyo's voice was loud and firm. He would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. Regardless of whether the people who killed Li Yunyu were Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, since someone had pointed out this point, it proved that it was possible. He wanted to avenge his younger brother and would not let go of any possibility. However, the most important thing now was not to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, but to obtain the inheritance of this ruin. As Li Buyo's voice fell, the cultivators in his team nodded one after another. I'll take the lead in a while. You guys follow behind me. Don't get separated by the skeleton army. Otherwise, there's nothing we can do. Li Buyo reminded the people behind him. Under such circumstances, everyone could only move forward together. Once they were separated by the skeleton army, the others would not be able to rescue them in time. Senior brother Li, don't worry. We understand. The cultivators in the team revealed a look of understanding. Even though the skeleton army in front of them was very frightening, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others only had 9 people and dared to charge in. In comparison, their team had more than 20 people. Their combat power was much stronger than the other party. The next moment, Li Buyo and the others also joined the battle. Sure enough, since Li Buyo and the others appeared, the skeleton army split up to deal with them. As a result, the pressure on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others lessened significantly. After all, they had lost half of their opponents. Naturally, they no longer felt as oppressive as before. The timing of Li Buyo's appearance is really timely. They've solved a big problem for us. A smile appeared on Xiren's face. Previously, the situation had forced him to force a smile. Now that the pressure had lessened, he felt much more at ease. Chapter 40-53. They were the first group to reach this place and they could not be overtaken by the other party. They had taken great pains to seize the initiative and they had to grasp it firmly in their own hands. After all, they had spent so much effort to reach this place. According to their judgment, the path ahead had always been a test. Perhaps there would be treasures behind them. If they were overtaken by the other party here, it would be too disappointing. Following Shangguan Yingying's words, everyone could not help but straighten their expressions. Junior sister Shangguan is right. We have to charge forward with all our might. Bailey Hongzhuang gently nodded her delicate head and the sound of her guqin poured out. Vigorous yuan power was mixed in the sound of her guqin and formed a straight attack under her control. Bailey Hongzhuang's guqin opened the path and Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue's attacks followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang, widening the path once again. At the same time, Wen Xiren and the others were not slow at all. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 had opened the path, they rushed forward as fast as they could. Before the skeleton army came in full force again, they advanced as fast as they could. Although this method consumed a lot of yuan power, it was undeniable that their speed was not slow. Li Buyo and the others were also attacking with all their might. The power that the 20 over people exploded with was naturally very terrifying. Just like how they had been able to enter the ruins at the fastest speed, one could see how powerful their combat power was. Their speed was not slow at all. The skeleton army's numbers were extremely terrifying and their powers were extremely powerful. On a normal day, they often went to the training grounds to train and understood these skeletons very well. Not only that, their combat power was the strongest in the Crimson Moon sect and they had worked together for a long time. Their tacit understanding was extremely high. They had originally thought that their speed would definitely surpass Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, they had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would advance at a speed that was not any slower than theirs. Instantly, their eyes were filled with a thick sense of astonishment. I did not expect that although the number of cultivators from Penglai Palace is small, their fighting style is very special. They are able to maintain this speed even when surrounded by so many skeletons. They are quite capable. Qian Feilong's eyes flashed with astonishment. As an expert of the Crimson Moon sect, his eyesight was naturally not bad. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang was really in the limelight. He also knew that the sect had sent people to recruit her, but they were not successful. Because of this, he had always been very curious about Bailey Hongzhuang. He wanted to know what kind of person could actually make such a name for herself. After all, according to his understanding of the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had only been on Penglai Island for a year. In such a short time, they were able to directly become inner disciples of Penglai Palace and obtain the recruitment of the three major forces. This ability was really not something that ordinary people could have. Now that he saw them, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also very strong. In comparison, he could not have reached this step at such a young age. It seems that we have underestimated them before. We have to go all out now. Otherwise, we might really let these people take the initiative. That would be terrible. Chapter 40-54. No matter what treasures there were, the cultivators who arrived first would definitely reap the most benefits. If they were late, the treasures would fall into someone else's hands. Let's speed up. We can't let these juniors see us as a joke, Li Buyo said calmly, but there was a hint of coldness in his tone. He had always been the most popular cultivator in the Crimson Moon sect. How could he let a few rising stars from the Penglai Palace steal his limelight? As Li Buyo's voice fell, Qian Feilong and the others couldn't help but shudder. They had been teammates with Li Buyo for so long, so they understood his temperament very well. Such a tone meant that he was starting to feel displeased. In the next moment, everyone sped up. Indeed, under such circumstances, if Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were to steal the initiative, they would lose face if word got out. Immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others realized that Li Buyo and the others had completely unleashed their speed. Their speed could be said to be abnormally fast. Seeing this, they did not dare to delay. After all, whoever was the fastest would be able to steal the initiative. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Buyo's teams were competing, another wall suddenly opened. Hearing this familiar voice, the cultivators in Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Buyo's teams could not help but look at the opening door. They did not know which faction's cultivators had appeared this time. Could it be the cultivators from the 100 Flowers Gate? Sheng Guaningying could not help but wonder. Now that the teams from the Penglai Palace and the Crimson Moon sect had appeared, only the 100 Flowers Gate's team had yet to appear. Perhaps it was the 100 Flowers Gate's team that had appeared at this moment. I don't know. We'll know if we keep watching. I just hope it's not the Crimson Moon sect's team, Wen Ziren said. Li Buyo and the others had unleashed their speed very quickly. In comparison, they only had a slight advantage. If it was the Crimson Moon sect's team that appeared, then they would naturally be no match for them once the two teams worked together. At the same time, Li Buyo and the others were also secretly guessing the team that might appear. They only hoped that it was not the Penglai Palace's team. It would be better if it was the 100 Flowers Gate. This way, the three factions would be able to combine forces. As the tightly shut door gradually opened, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also saw the cultivators inside. After seeing the familiar clothes, everyone's eyes could not help but light up. These are the clothes of the Penglai Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately noticed the other party's clothes. From this point alone, she could tell which power the other party belonged to. Di Beichen and the others also had smiles on their faces. As long as it was the team of their Penglai Palace, then in the face of the Red Moon sect, they would be a whole. This was good news. Compared to the joy of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, the faces of Li Buyo and the others had become ugly. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 9 people was not enough for them to worry about. Now that a team from Penglai Palace had appeared, they didn't know who they were. Could it be Wan Yanling and the others? Qian Feilong secretly guessed. Wan Yanling was the strongest cultivator in the Penglai Palace. Normally, the competition between him and Li Buyo was quite intense. In fact, their strength was about the same. However, the Penglai Palace's reputation was stronger than the Crimson Moon sect's. Therefore, Wan Yanling's reputation was more prominent. Chapter 40-55. Hearing Qian Feilong's guess, Li Buyo's face turned cold. He had been competing with Wan Yanling for so many years. Although their strengths were similar and they had always been tied, Wan Yanling's reputation had always been better than his because he belonged to Penglai Palace. Regarding this point, it could be said that he was extremely unconvinced. Therefore, he had always wanted to defeat Wan Yanling to prove that he was the strongest. At the same time, he could also fight for Crimson Moon sect. However, every time his strength increased and he challenged Wan Yanling, he would find that Wan Yanling had also improved. From the beginning to the end, the two of them could not determine a winner. However, Wan Yanling's reputation was still higher than his. As the door was completely opened, the appearance of the cultivators and the team appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Ren Zihang's eyes flashed with surprise. It's senior brother Wan Yan and the others. The faces of Di Beichen and the others also showed a light of understanding. Wan Yanling was the strongest person in their Penglai Palace. Ever since they joined Penglai Palace, they were not unfamiliar with the name Wan Yanling. As the strongest cultivator in Penglai Palace, he was naturally in the limelight. However, he spent most of his time in seclusion. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had not seen his true face. Therefore, they did not have much interaction with him. Wan Yanling clearly did not expect that there were 2 other teams that had arrived here before them. A surprised look appeared on his handsome face. However, it disappeared in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that it was hard to notice. I didn't expect it to be so lively here, Wan Yanling said slowly. A smile appeared on his lips. Your reputation as Penglai Palace's #1 master is undeserved. Your junior brothers and sisters are all faster than you. Li Buyo said in a mocking tone. Hearing this, Wan Yanling did not care at all. There are talented people in every generation. Our Penglai Palace's outstanding disciples come in batches. I will be happier if they can surpass me. In comparison, your Crimson Moon sect has always needed you to shoulder the burden. You can imagine the difference between the two. Li Buyo originally wanted to take this opportunity to mock Wan Yanling. He didn't expect Wan Yanling to turn the tables on him. He couldn't think of a rebuttal for a while. His face instantly turned ugly. Wan Yanling, don't talk nonsense. Recently, your limelight in Penglai Palace has been completely stolen by these newcomers. No matter how you pretend, it is useless. Wan Yanling chuckled, Li Buyo, I am not as narrow-minded as you. I am very happy that the Penglai Palace has a new excellent practitioner. I will not have the slightest intention of suppressing them. If they can really surpass me and become the #1 master of Penglai Palace, I will be convinced. But you have always boasted that you are the most outstanding young master. How come I heard that your brother was killed a few days ago? You can't even protect your own younger brother. This doesn't seem to match the title you emphasized, does it? Hearing Wan Yanling's words, Li Buyo's eyes became gloomy. He immediately lowered his voice and said, Wan Yanling, I heard that my brother died at the hands of your Penglai Palace disciples. Chapter 40-56. Listening to Wan Yanling's casual and even sarcastic words, Li Buyo's eyes suddenly burned with anger. Li Yunyu was his younger brother, and their relationship was usually very good. Now that Li Yunyu had been killed, although he didn't know who did it, since they dared to kill Li Buyo's younger brother, then they were going against him. Once he caught the murderer, he would make them pay a heavy price. What nonsense are you talking about? Li Buyo glared at him. Maybe some despicable person attacked my younger brother when I wasn't paying attention, intending to injure me. Hearing Li Buyo's words, Wan Yanling said nonchalantly, Li Buyo, you don't need to test me here. If I wanted to kill your brother, I could have done it openly. Why would I need to hide? Even if it wasn't you, it was someone from Penglai Palace. Li Buyo's eyebrows were cold. Although he hated Wan Yanling, he also knew his character. If it was really him, Wan Yanling would admit it frankly because they both saw each other as a thorn in their side. If they could make each other unhappy, they were always very happy. Looking at Li Buyo and Wan Yanling's tit-for-tat appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang and others couldn't help but look at each other. Originally, they thought that meeting Li Buyo was a big trouble for them. They didn't expect that after Wan Yanling appeared, it would become a tit-for-tat between Li Buyo and Wan Yanling. It seemed that they had nothing to do with it. This was really beyond their expectations. At this time, Ren Ziheng, who knew some inside information, couldn't help but say, Senior brother Wan Yan and Li Buyo have always been in a competitive relationship. When they meet each other, they usually compete like this. But until now, no one can do anything to the other. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. They are evenly matched. According to her judgment, Wan Yanling, as the top master of Penglai Palace, should be stronger than Li Buyo. Ren Ziheng nodded. It used to be like this. But senior brother Wan Yan's reputation is better than Li Buyo's because senior brother Wan Yan Han was also the top master of Penglai Palace. His fame was unique. Wan Yan Han. Ao Ling Xiao was a little surprised. Why haven't I heard of him? Brother Wan Yan went out 3 years ago and never came back. We don't know where he went, but we heard that he went out to train and won't be back for a while. Ren Ziheng also had a puzzled look on his face. Many disciples of the Penglai Palace were extremely curious about Wan Yan Han's whereabouts. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. They already had some guesses in their hearts. Come to think of it, the place Wan Yan Han went to should be the upper realm. Because Ren Ziheng had yet to break through to the Starlight realm, he wasn't very clear about this situation. However, Wan Yanling and Li Buyo both knew about this matter. So that's how it is, Di Beichen said, senior brother Wan Yan Han is also a genius. In the past, when senior brother Wan Yan Han was still around, there were many female disciples from the 100 Flowers Gate and Crimson Moon sect who admired him. Unfortunately, there was no news of him after that. Ren Zimei could not help but say. Chapter 40-57. Following Ren Ziheng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' eyes lit up. If Wan Yanling could defeat Li Buyo, it would be a good thing. The battle between Li Buyo and Wan Yanling only lasted for a short time. Everyone put all their attention on dealing with the skeleton army. Even though there were already 3 teams, the skeleton army's combat power could not be underestimated. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives here. Junior Sister Bailey, if you can't hold on, you can come closer to us. We can help you. Wan Yanling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Although he had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang before, he had heard many descriptions and stories about Bailey Hongzhuang. Therefore, he could recognize Bailey Hongzhuang even though it was his first time seeing her. Moreover, it was said that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were all very good-looking. He thought that there would be no other team that could make him feel unfamiliar with such an outstanding team. Thank you, Senior Brother Wan Yan, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Now, among the 3 teams, Bailey Hongzhuang's team was the closest to the exit. Wan Yanling and the others had just arrived, so their progress was naturally the slowest. If they waited for Wan Yanling and the others to help, their speed would undoubtedly be slower than Li Buyo. This was not a situation that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others wanted to see. Therefore, everyone still burst forth with full speed and quickly moved forward. The originally huge pressure had been reduced a lot after the 3 teams shared it. Previously, everyone only felt that it was difficult to move forward. Now that they were careful, they could still move forward. Wan Yanling and Li Buyo's teams burst forth with their fastest speed. The 2 teams were originally in a competitive relationship. No matter where they were, they would compete. Therefore, this was also the place where they competed. Whoever was faster would be the winner. Just as the 3 teams were moving forward at full speed, a new team appeared. After the other team appeared, they realized that they were cultivators from the 100 Flowers Gate. The cultivators of the 100 Flowers Gate clearly did not expect 3 groups to arrive first. Surprise appeared on their faces, but it did not last long before it was diverted by the Black Skeleton Army. Why are there so many skeletons? The power of darkness is what nourishes the skeletons. This situation is within our expectations. You should be more careful. Wan Yanling smiled faintly as he looked at the cultivators of the 100 Flower Gate. Compared to the constant competition between the Crimson Moon sect and the Penglai Palace, their relationship with the 100 Flower Gate was much friendlier. After all, the 100 Flower Gate mainly focused on medicine and alchemy. Although they also focused on increasing their strength, they could not compare to the Penglai Palace and the Crimson Moon sect. Thank you for your reminder, Brother Wan Yan. The cultivators of the 100 Flowers Gate immediately joined the group. Although they were usually weaker than the Penglai Palace and the Crimson Moon sect in terms of cultivation, no one was willing to give up on the legacy of the ruins. As a result, they had to take the risk. After all, once he obtained the inheritance, he would no longer be the same as before. Chapter 40-58. The other teams had at least 20 people. In comparison, their team only had 9 people, not even half of the other teams. What's more, the other teams were the top teams of the 3 major forces. Their teammates' combat power was also extremely strong, but they were much weaker. Fortunately, because they came the least, they still had a certain advantage. However, once the other team caught up, it would be very difficult for them to snatch the treasures and inheritance from the other teams with their strength. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other with a heavy heart. Now they didn't have time to waste. They had to finish everything as soon as possible. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's zither music rang out crazily, and invisible sound waves spread out. The skeletons in front of her all fell down or turned into nothingness after being attacked by the sound waves. Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue also unleashed their combat power to the best. Not only did it not affect the ruins, but the effect was also excellent. Xiren and Shangguan Inying were not willing to be left behind. Long before, the 2 of them had already begun to practice the combination martial arts. It was just that the combination martial arts were far more difficult to practice than ordinary martial arts because it required an extremely high degree of tacit understanding between the two people. Once there was a slight problem with one person, it would lead to the failure of the martial arts. It was precisely because of this that for so long, they had not performed this martial arts in front of others. However, after the two of them successfully performed this martial arts just now, the two of them also had a little more confidence. Under such a situation of full eruption, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other's speed was not slower than Li Buyo and the others. Seeing this scene, the other three teams couldn't help but be surprised. Speaking of which, they didn't find it strange that the three teams appeared here, but the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang's team was a bit abrupt. The most important thing was that the team with the least number of people and the weakest strength was now at the forefront. Brother Wan Yen, who is that in your Penglai Palace? I didn't expect your Penglai Palace to have such a powerful rising star, Bai Ying Tian of the 100 Flowers Gate couldn't help but ask. Hearing this, Wan Yen Ling chuckled as he fought. Believe me, if I say their names, you will realize that you must have heard of them before. Bai Ying Tian was slightly stunned and looked at Wan Yen Ling in surprise. Oh. Could it be that they are very famous? Bailey Hongzhuang. You should have heard of her. Wan Yen Ling chuckled. She is now the pride of our Penglai Palace. With Wan Yen Ling's words, the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Gate all showed great shock. Bailey Hongzhuang. Bai Ying Tian couldn't help but look in the direction of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Is that the one who developed the drug to suppress dark energy, Bailey Hongzhuang? That's right. Wan Yen Ling nodded. That's her. I have long heard of Bailey Hongzhuang's name, but I have never seen her face. I didn't expect her to be such a beauty and so powerful. It's really surprising. Bai Ying Tian couldn't help but sigh. He only thought that Wan Yen Ling was dedicated to studying medicine, but he didn't expect that Wan Yen Ling was also not lagging behind in cultivation, which was beyond his expectations. Chapter 40-59. Currently, Bailey Hongzhuang's team was extremely famous among the three major sections. However, other than the disciples of Penglai Palace, the 100 Flowers Gate and Crimson Moon sect had only heard of her name but did not know what she looked like. The disciples of the 100 Flowers Gate were extremely curious about this genius doctor. They had long heard that she was very young, but when they saw her in person, they could not help but be shocked. This was because she was really too young. When they talked about her, Bailey Hongzhuang also gave them a polite smile. However, all her attention was still on dealing with these skeletons. The four teams all pushed their speed to the limit. Bailey Hongzhuang's team was the weakest, but they attacked in a straight line, so their speed was not slow. Only the sound of weapons clashing could be heard in the entire hall. Because there were too few people, Bailey Hongzhuang's team was left with wounds. Among them, Ren Zime, Shangguan Yingying, and the others were the most seriously injured because it was too difficult for them to deal with all this with their cultivation. Fresh blood dripped onto the ground, but the skeletons became even more excited and their attacks became even more violent. Under such circumstances, the other teams were faintly showing signs of surpassing them. Roar! White Lion let out a loud roar and pounced forward with its huge body, attacking the skeletons' lower bodies. At the same time, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's bodies became bigger and bigger under everyone's shocked gazes. Seeing this scene, not to mention Li Buyo and the others, even Ren Ziheng and the others revealed astonished expressions. They had been teammates with Bailey Hongzhuang for such a long time, but they did not know that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had such terrifying abilities. After becoming bigger, Xiao He and Xiao Bai could be said to be extremely strong. With a sweep of their hands, they cleared out the skeletons in front of them. Di Baichen's mystical fire demon rock spread its wings and flew into the air with Shangguan Yingying on its back. The ruins prohibited flying. Cultivators could not float in the air, but the mystical fire demon rock could. Shangguan had obviously suffered heavy injuries. If she continued to stay here, it would be difficult for everyone to take care of her. It would be best if the mystical fire demon rock could bring Shangguan to the other side of the passage. Xiren's berserk earth-shaking tiger also showed itself. It and White Lion stood on both sides of the team. Although it hadn't been growing for a long time, with Master Long's help, the berserk earth-shaking tiger was no longer a child. It had reached adulthood. His majestic appearance was very domineering. With a tiger pounce, he directly pounced on a group of skeletons. Shangguan deep-sea demonic flood dragon wasn't inferior either. They weren't on the surface of the sea, so its fighting power couldn't be maximized. However, the divine dragon's tail whip was still quite powerful. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could be said to be getting faster and faster, and the distance that was gradually being pulled apart once again. Seeing this scene, the cultivators of the other three teams could not help but frown. The experts of the three major forces were all here, but the limelight was snatched away by the younger generation. They really felt a little embarrassed. The mystical fire demon rock did not disappoint everyone's expectations. It successfully brought Shangguan to the other side of the passage. Chapter 40-60. Hongzhuang, these skeletons won't attack from behind. You guys come over quickly. Hearing Shangguan words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but reveal a joyful expression. Originally, they were worried that these skeletons would turn around and attack Shangguan. They didn't expect that their worry was unnecessary. This way, they would be able to escape even faster. Little Xian, you've really done a good job. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as she looked at the mysterious fire devil rock flying back. She patted the little guy's head, although this little guy's body wasn't small. Little Xian obviously liked being praised. It immediately raised its head and flapped its wings. Its flying ability was very powerful. Immediately after, Renzime was also brought to the passage by the mysterious fire devil rock. Li Buyo and the others didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang's team to think of such a method. Using contracted beasts to fly directly over, it was much more convenient than charging through from below. Unfortunately, there were very few flying contracted beasts, and even fewer outstanding ones. Therefore, their team didn't have a powerful flying beast like the mysterious fire devil rock. I didn't expect this small team's foundation to be so strong. Not to mention so many contracted beasts opening the way, even the mysterious fire devil rock came out. This kind of momentum is a little shocking. The mysterious fire devil rock is a first-class contracted beast. Normally, it's extremely difficult to obtain such a contracted beast. I didn't expect this kid to have one. Not to mention the mysterious fire devil rock, the violent earth-splitting tiger and the deep-sea demonic flood dragon aren't easy to obtain. As for the two contracted beasts that can change their sizes, they're even more amazing. That white lion also looks extremely majestic. I can't even tell what species it is. No wonder this small team could make it here. Their ability is not simple. Li Buyo, Baiying Tian, and the others couldn't help but whisper. They were the strongest team in the Crimson Moon sect and the 100-Flower Gate, but in terms of wealth, they couldn't compare to Bailey Hongzhuang's team. Just like this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others passed through the skeleton army's obstruction one by one and arrived at the entrance of the passage. After escaping danger, everyone could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Although the length of this hall wasn't very long, it was still difficult to walk from there to here. In just a short period of time, everyone's clothes were soaked in sweat and blood, and their injuries were not light. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and her team disappeared from the sight of the other three teams. Seeing them enter the hall at the back like this, Li Buyo and the rest were a little anxious. If the treasures were at the back, wouldn't they all be taken by Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest? Senior brotherly, they went there before us. What should we do? Li Buyo's face darkened. Let them go first. If they manage to snatch the treasure, we'll snatch it from them. If Li Buyo didn't have the intention to kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others before, then he really wanted to kill them now. It was obvious that these fellows were rich. If he killed them, he would definitely gain a lot. What's more, he was also very dissatisfied with how these juniors had stolen the limelight. Chapter 4061. Hearing Li Buyo's words, the cultivators in the team all calmed down. Although the other party had many trump cards, if they were determined to deal with them, the other party would definitely not be a match for them. Since that was the case, they would let Bailey Hongzhuang and the others be complacent for a while. They would treat it as free labor to help them search for treasures. After that, they would wipe out Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in one fell swoop. Wang Yanling could not help but glance at Li Buyo. Although he could not hear what they were talking about, he could tell from the latter's expression that it was definitely not a good thing. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had broken through the Great Hall of Skeletons, they continued to move forward. The path in front of them was still pitch black. With the illumination of the night pearls, everyone could see the path under their feet clearly. The group did not move quickly because no one knew if they would encounter unknown dangers next. From the moment they entered the ruins until now, they had not seen any treasures at all. They had only experienced a few unnecessary dangers. After Bailey Hongzhuang fed Shangguan Yingying a pill, she asked aloud, "Yingying, how do you feel?" Shangguan Yingying nodded, "Don't worry. Although I've suffered some injuries, most of them are superficial. It won't affect me." "That's good." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the others, "Let's spread the healing medicine on your wounds first. The dark energy here is very strong. If we don't disperse it as soon as possible, it will cause a great impact." Everyone nodded. Healing their wounds was indeed very important. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little relieved. Fortunately, she had already developed a medicine to deal with the dark energy. Otherwise, the injuries they had suffered in the ruins would have greatly affected them. The group continued to move forward. The dark path seemed to have no end and no hope. In my opinion, Li Buyo and the others won't be able to catch up to us for a while. However, we don't know where the inheritance is. If we can't find it and the other party catches up to us, we'll be helpless. Xiren's face was filled with sorrow. He could not help but feel anxious because they had not found anything. "Let's do our best." Di Beichen patted Xiren's shoulder. If there was no one chasing after them, it would have been fine. However, there was someone following closely behind them. Everyone felt an indescribable sense of urgency. Mo Yinjue chimed in, "Although time is very important, what's more important is one's own perception and luck. If you don't have such comprehension ability and luck, it will be useless no matter how early you go. There's no need to be too anxious." Hearing this, Xiren nodded, "I hope so." His warm words were still filled with helplessness and worry. After all, their team's combat power was still a little weak. It was obvious that Li Buyo was not a good person. He was afraid that he would encounter a lot of trouble. Moreover, although Wang Yanling was their senior brother, no one knew if he would help them in this kind of place. "Don't think too much. Look, there's a stone room." Bailey Hongzhuang pointed at a stone room not far away. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's eyes lit up. After walking for so long, they finally saw the stone room. Chapter 4062. In the next moment, Di Baichen pushed open the door of the stone room. There was no mechanism in the stone room. It was just a simple push and the door opened. However, when everyone saw the situation inside, they couldn't help but widen their eyes and gasp. This is too extravagant, isn't it? Chu Jinfeng looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. He had heard that there were many treasures in the ruins, but he didn't expect it to be so rich. Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei were also shocked by the scene in front of them. Looking around, the room was filled with treasures and spiritual stones. This scene was really shocking. In comparison, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were calmer. They had seen many treasures in the ruins before, but the scene in front of them was obviously more spectacular than they had imagined. Although Ao Lingxiao was a little surprised, he wasn't too shocked. After all, he came from the upper realm and knew about this kind of thing. Many owners of the ruins would leave their treasures in the ruins. As a result, the inheritor's wealth would increase greatly. The owner of the ruins had mastered the power of darkness. His achievements must have been very shocking, so it was normal for him to have such wealth. These spiritual stones seem to be different from the ones we usually use. Di Baichen looked at the pile of spiritual stones in front of him and felt that the spiritual energy in them was much richer than the ones they usually used. Hearing this, Ao Lingxiao explained, "We usually use low-grade spiritual stones, but these spiritual stones in front of you are middle-grade spiritual stones. Compared to low-grade spiritual stones, the spiritual energy in them is much more abundant. The value is also much higher than low-grade spiritual stones." "I see." Di Baichen's face showed that he understood. Although there was only a difference between middle-grade and low-grade spiritual stones, the difference in spiritual energy was huge. A middle-grade spiritual stone like this would be enough for them to cultivate for a few days. Moreover, the spiritual energy in it was much purer. "Ao Lingxiao, I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable." Ren Zimei looked at Ao Lingxiao in surprise. Previously, she had only heard that Ao Lingxiao was unrestrained and had an extremely strange character. Now that they were teammates, her previous impression of him gradually weakened. Most importantly, they didn't expect that Ao Lingxiao, an outer palace disciple, would know about it. "I just happened to hear about it." Ao Lingxiao smiled faintly and casually glossed over this matter. "There are so many treasures here, let's put them away first." Sheng Guaniying couldn't help but say, "We don't know when Li Buyo and the others will catch up. When they come, we won't be able to make it in time." These treasures were extremely precious to cultivators. Needless to say, gold, silver, and other treasures, the most important thing was these mid-grade spirit stones, which were very helpful to them. "That's right, we have to hurry," Ren Zimei said. Just as everyone was about to put away the treasures, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice suddenly rang out. "Wait! Don't touch it." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone could not help but be stunned. Their faces flashed with thick astonishment. "Hongzhuang, what's wrong?" Sheng Guaniying couldn't help but ask. Chapter 4063. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang say that there was something wrong with these treasures, no one dared to touch them again. They all looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, not knowing what the problem was. "Wife, what did you find?" Di Baichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. They could not see anything wrong with these treasures with their naked eyes. He wondered what Bailey Hongzhuang had found. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a thoughtful look. She carefully sniffed the spirit stones and said, "These treasures seem to be poisoned." Hearing this, everyone could not help but widen their eyes. "Poisoned?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, "Although the smell is very faint, I can still feel it. Furthermore, I can only determine the composition of a part of this poison. I have not come into contact with the other part, but it seems to be related to the power of darkness." "Then what should we do?" Can't we touch these things? Chu Jinfeng's eyes flashed with anxiety. It was not easy to see so many treasures, but they could not take them. This was too depressing. Mountains of gold and silver were right in front of them, but they could not take them away. Anyone who saw such a scene would be very depressing. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and said, to be on the safe side, we should not touch them. Otherwise, if we are poisoned, it would be terrible. Hongzhuang is right. Treasures are not as important as life. Di Beichen also said, since we can't take these treasures, let's not delay and continue on our way. Hearing this, although everyone was somewhat unwilling, they could only agree. Although treasures were good, they still needed to be alive to enjoy them. Before leaving, Di Beichen closed the door of the stone room again. The team behind us will definitely go in to take a look after seeing this stone room. This will buy us some time. If the people behind us do not discover the abnormality of these treasures, they will not be able to escape the fate of being poisoned. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. She also felt very helpless about the way the owner of this ruin did things. Could it be that, this ruin was just for everyone to gain experience, and all the treasures here were just for them to look at? I don't know what the owner of this ruin was thinking, to actually choose to poison these treasures. If it weren't for Hongzhuang, I'm afraid we would have all been poisoned. Xiren could not help but exclaim. Originally, after passing 2 levels, he had thought that he would finally be able to reap some rewards. He did not expect that it would be a trap. This was really depressing. Sai, the character of someone who grasps the power of darkness, is also very strange. If it were an ordinary owner of a ruin, he would probably not do something like this. Ao Lingxiao shrugged. It seems that cultivators who have grasped the power of darkness have very strange personalities. The inheritance they left behind is not to nurture young people, but to send them to their deaths. As Ao Lingxiao's voice faded, everyone's expression changed. If that was really the case, then it would be terrible. I hope it's just that the owner of this ruin likes to test everyone, and it's not what you said. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but say. According to Ao Lingxiao's words, this ruin was a little scary. As everyone continued to move forward, suddenly, a huge door appeared in front of everyone. The black door had a golden totem drawn on it. At a glance, it gave people a feeling of shock. Chapter 4064. This door looks extraordinary. Could the inheritance be here? Mo Yinjue stared at the door in front of him. The surrounding decorations seemed to exude a sense of nobility. Compared to the hall they had seen before, this place in front of them was obviously more important. Everyone could not help but look at each other, secretly guessing in their hearts. If that was really the case, then it would be great. Let's go in and take a look. Di Beichen spoke out. Everyone nodded and immediately reached out to push the door open. However, after everyone pushed, they realized that the door could not be pushed open at all. Why can't this door be pushed open? Everyone looked at each other. They really did not expect to encounter such a situation. Looks like there's an 80 to 90% chance that there's a treasure behind this door. Xiren's eyes lit up. The door of the stone room was pushed open so easily before, but the thing inside was poisonous and could not be taken away. Now that this door can't be opened, the thing inside must be real. Hearing Xiren's words, everyone could not help but chuckle. If it is really as you say, then it will be great. Ever since they came here, they had been adventuring but had not gained anything. Now, they could only hope to gain something. Everyone stood in front of the door, thinking about how to enter. Thinking about it, since even they could not open this door, it could not be opened by force. There must be a trick to it. Thinking of this, everyone carefully looked around the door. Now, they could be considered to have some experience. Along the way, they had been looking for mechanisms. Presumably, this time would be no exception. I don't know what kind of mechanism it is this time. The owner of this ruin really likes to test people. Shangguan Yingying sighed. She originally thought that she was quite smart, but ever since she came here, she felt that her brain was not enough. Along the way, other than the most obvious mechanism that she saw in the hall, she really did not understand anything else that needed to be understood. Perhaps the owner of this ruin values comprehension very much. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She also felt that the personality of the owner of this ruin was very strange. However, there were all kinds of people. Perhaps it was because of the many obstacles that this inheritance was so amazing. Perhaps the inheritance of the power of darkness places a high value on comprehension, which is why he arranged it this way, Di Beichen said. Shangguan Yingying spread out her hands. Just from this situation, I know that this inheritance has nothing to do with me. She finally understood that if the owner of this ruin valued perception so much, then she basically had no chance at all. I only hope that there are some treasures inside. That way, I can at least gain something. Looking at Shangguan Yingying's expression, which seemed like she had already seen through everything, everyone felt a little funny. Perhaps this kind of attitude was better. Yingying, that might not be the case. Maybe the owner of the ruins appreciates your open-minded attitude, so he directly passed the inheritance to you. Wen Ziren smiled and joked. Anything is possible. It would be great if what you said was true. When I become stronger, I will protect you. Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows and laughed. Chapter 4065. Facing the black and gold door in front of them, the group first looked around carefully to see if there were any traps. However, even after they searched the entire area, they found that there were no traps at all. Seeing this, the group could not help but frown. If there were no traps around, then the situation would be a little complicated. If there are no traps around, then how are we going to get in? Ren Zimei could not help but ask. The situation in front of them was really confusing. After Mo Yunjue carefully looked around, his gaze finally fixed on the black door. Maybe the solution lies on this door. This door? Chu Jinfeng was secretly surprised. Aside from looking a little better, there's nothing different about this door. The pattern on this door is the problem that needs to be solved. Di Beichen stared at the black door in front of him, the corners of his lips slowly curling up. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. I didn't expect this to be a puzzle. What do you mean? Shangguan Yingying could not help but ask Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Until now, she had not discovered what was different about this black door. How did Di Beichen and the rest know how to solve it? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and explained, Yingying, use your mental strength to touch this black door and you'll find out. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the group tried to use their mental strength to touch the golden door. Sure enough, as soon as they touched it, a huge jigsaw puzzle appeared in front of them. The pattern on this puzzle was very similar to the pattern on the black folding door in front of them, but it was much bigger. It would not be easy to put this puzzle together. It seems that we can only enter this door after we put this puzzle together. Wen Ziren couldn't help but sigh. With such a large jigsaw puzzle and such a dark pattern, it really wasn't an easy task to piece it together. Moreover, looking at this number, one could tell that it would take a very long time to piece them together. Perhaps before they could piece them together, the cultivators behind them would have already caught up. Do your best, Di Beichen said. For a moment, everyone sat in front of the door, trying to piece the puzzle together. In order to complete this puzzle, not only did it require sufficient time, it also required a great deal of patience. Otherwise, if he was anxious, it would be even more difficult to complete it. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang's group was trying to crack the door, the three teams of Li Buyo, Wan Yanling, and Bai Yingtian also passed through the skeleton hall and came to the back. Among the three teams, Li Buyo's team was the first to come out. After all, they were originally in second place and had a certain advantage. Although Wan Yanling's team was slightly slower, they didn't fall behind by much. In comparison, Bai Yingtian's team was the slowest. After all, not only were they the last to arrive, but their combat strength was also slightly weaker, so they were the last to arrive. Chapter 4066. Li Buyo and the others continued forward until they reached the first stone chamber. Only then did they stop. Looking at the closed door of the stone chamber, Li Buyo pushed it open with one hand. When everyone saw the current situation, their faces couldn't help but flash with a thick sense of shock. Wow! Almost everyone could not help but exclaim. So many treasures, it's really amazing. Everyone only felt an indescribable sense of luck rushing to the top of their heads. Such a scene was usually only seen in their dreams. In the next moment, everyone rushed towards the treasures, only wanting to put all the treasures into their own Qinquan bags. However, after seeing this scene, Li Buyo could not help but be puzzled. There are so many treasures here, why didn't Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest take them? Such treasures, as long as one was human, would definitely be tempted. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were in front of them, there was naturally no reason for them not to take them. Hearing Li Buyo's words, everyone was a little puzzled. This was really something that they couldn't understand. Perhaps they were too anxious when they left, so they did not notice that there was a stone chamber here. Li Buyo frowned slightly. Although this stone chamber is not particularly obvious, it shouldn't be overlooked so easily, right? The door of this stone chamber is tightly shut. Perhaps they left in too much of a hurry, so they overlooked it. Impossible. Li Buyo shook his head. One person might have overlooked it, but how could the entire team have overlooked this place? Something must be wrong. Thinking of this, Li Buyo could not help but move closer to the treasures to feel carefully, but he did not find anything. These were all real treasures, and there was nothing strange about them. Why would the other party neglect this place? Could it be that they feel that although these things are precious, they are all external objects? In addition, we are all chasing after them, and they want to obtain the inheritance in the ruins, so they chose to give up on these things. Another cultivator could not help but say. As everyone knew, there were always many treasures in ruins, but the most precious treasure was the inheritance of the ruin's owner. This is the only explanation that has some possibility. Li Buyo thought for a while, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If that was really the case, then the thinking of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other youngsters was truly terrifying. With so much wealth in front of them, they actually chose not to take it. This was not something an ordinary person could do. At the same time, it also proved their determination to inherit this legacy. Senior Li, that must be the case. Let's quickly put away these treasures. Otherwise, it will be too late once Wan Yanling and the others catch up. Hearing this, Li Buyo looked at the treasures in front of him with mixed feelings. Vaguely, he felt that there must be a problem, but he couldn't figure out what the problem was. Leave some people here to store the treasures. The rest of you, follow me to chase after Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. We can't let them take the inheritance. Li Buyo said. If the inheritance was snatched away by Wan Yanling, he might be able to accept it. However, if it was snatched away by a few juniors, he really couldn't accept it. Chapter 4067. He had to kill these fellows as soon as possible. He could not allow them to have the chance to grow. As Li Buyo's voice fell, a portion of the cultivators immediately followed him and left. The remaining cultivators were immersed in the treasures. Bailey Hongzhuang tried her best to piece together the huge jigsaw puzzle in front of her. She had to admit that such a large number would make one feel dizzy. However, she also understood that this was the most important test for the owner of the ruins. The jigsaw puzzle in front of her not only tested her patience but also her comprehension. It was impossible to tell what the jigsaw puzzle was just by looking at it. However, after studying it carefully, one would realize that there were some faint connections between the jigsaw puzzles. Therefore, she had to grasp these connections and connect them together before piecing them together. In the end, it all depended on one's intuition because no one knew what the jigsaw puzzle would look like in the end. When Li Buyo and the rest arrived, they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest sitting in front of the door. They looked like they were in deep meditation. Seeing this scene, Li Buyo's eyes suddenly lit up. This was a great opportunity. It was illegal to not obtain the blessings. Everyone was in a state of meditation. If he took advantage of this opportunity to attack, the other party would not even have a chance to refute. In the next moment, Li Buyo immediately took out his weapon and waved it at Di Beichen without hesitation. Wan Yanling led some cultivators and quickly chased after them. When he saw that Li Buyo was about to attack Di Beichen, he was still some distance away. He immediately shouted, "Li Buyo, stop!" However, after hearing Wan Yanling's words, Li Buyo did not stop. On the contrary, he sped up. Not only him, but the other cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect also began to attack. This was the best opportunity for them. They definitely could not miss it. Wan Yanling's face turned gloomy. As fellow disciples, he did not wish for Di Beichen and the rest to die just like that. He could not help but sigh in his heart. Di Beichen and the rest were too careless. They actually dared to enter a state of meditation at this time. If they were not careful, they would lose their lives. The sharp sword was getting closer and closer to Di Beichen. The smile on Li Buyo's face gradually widened. However, just as it was about to stab Di Beichen, Li Buyo suddenly felt a huge force attacking him. Then, his entire body flew out and fell to the ground. Li Buyo was not the only one. The other cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect were in the same situation. The disciples of the Penglai Palace who finally arrived at the back couldn't help but smile after seeing this scene. Li Buyo quickly stood up and looked angrily at Bailey Hongzhuang's group who were meditating. It wasn't until this moment that he understood that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were surrounded by a layer of restrictions. No one else could attack them. No wonder they dared to sit here and meditate so boldly. Li Buyo, you are a senior after all. How dare you sneak attack someone from the back? That is too shameless. Wan Yanling looked at Li Buyo with a gloomy expression. He did not expect Li Buyo to become more and more despicable in such a short time. Hearing Wan Yanling's words, Li Buyo's expression turned ugly. Chapter 4068. They killed my brother. It's normal for me to kill them, Li Buyo said coldly. Hearing that, Wan Yanling sneered, do you think it's okay to pin this groundless title on the heads of our Penglai Palace disciples? Who would believe that? It's up to you to believe it or not. Li Buyo waved his hand and did not care about Wan Yanling's thoughts. Consider them lucky this time. Anyway, they will die in my hands sooner or later. Li Buyo, you're too arrogant. Wan Yanling looked at Li Buyo coldly. They are the disciples of our Penglai Palace. If you dare to attack them, I will not let you off. Li Buyo snorted, Wan Yanling, I can't be bothered to argue with you now. The most important thing is to obtain the inheritance of the relic. Let's settle our scores after this is over. That's for the best. Wan Yanling did not back down, it's time for us to settle our scores. The temperature suddenly dropped to freezing point. The cultivators of Crimson Moon Sect and Penglai Palace confronted each other. Both sides treated each other as enemies. However, in front of the inheritance of the relic, no one had the intention to attack. After all, the inheritance of the relic was the most important thing now. Wan Yanling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest who were sitting at the side. His eyes flashed with a faint doubt. He did not understand why Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest would choose to meditate here. At the same time, Li Buyo led the disciples of Crimson Moon Sect and started to try to open the black door. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could not open the black door in the end. Seeing this, Wan Yanling and the rest also went forward to try. The final result was the same. The black door did not budge at all. After realizing this, they stopped their previous actions. Obviously, the black door could not be opened. It must be related to the black door that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest entered such a state. Why are Junior Brother D and the rest meditating here? Could it be that they are thinking of a way to break the black door? A cultivator could not help but guess. The other party would definitely not meditate here for no reason. It must be related to the door. That should be the case. Could it be that he did something wrong and was sealed here by the owner of this ruin? That shouldn't be the case. If they really did something wrong, they would have dissipated. There wouldn't be any power left to protect them. Wan Yanling and Li Buyo were not stupid. At this moment, they naturally understood that Di Beichen and the others were thinking of a way to crack the black door. They immediately studied the surroundings carefully and immediately locked on to the possibility of mental strength. It must be that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' spiritual power was connected to a certain place, so they were meditating here. Soon, Wan Yanling and the others realized that the black door was actually a huge puzzle. They had to piece the picture together. Immediately, the group of them sat beside Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and began to piece together this huge puzzle. Not long after, the disciples of the 100 Flowers Gate arrived and entered the same state. Chapter 4069. Please enter the text. Time gradually passed. Everyone sat in the same place like old monks in meditation. They did not move at all. Their divine senses had already drifted into the puzzle. During this time, many cultivators chose to give up because they could not make sense of the puzzle. They began to search around, hoping to find other treasures other than the stone chamber. However, after searching for a while, they found that this was a dead end. There was nothing else other than this hall that could not be opened. Seeing this, everyone was a little disappointed. They thought that the other treasures could only be in this hall. If they wanted to obtain the treasures, they had to complete this puzzle. Therefore, everyone had no choice but to continue the puzzle. Ever since Di Beichen entered the puzzle world, he had been observing the pieces of the puzzle. He vaguely felt that there were some connections between them, and there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity and intimacy. Everyone had already begun to try to piece the puzzle together. However, he remained in a state of observation and did not take action. He wanted to first think of the final shape of the puzzle in his mind before piecing it together. After a long time, many pieces intertwined and stuck together in Di Beichen's mind. When it finally turned into a black hole, Di Beichen's gaze changed. He began to move. He quickly pieced the puzzle pieces together. It was as if he already had the original in his mind. Next, he just had to piece them together according to the order. When he finished the last piece of the puzzle, all the puzzle pieces in front of him flashed with a light and turned into a complete picture. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others only felt a special power. They saw a black light surround Di Beichen. Then, Di Beichen's figure disappeared from their sight. Where did Beichen go? Wen Zirant's eyes couldn't help but show a trace of worry. Di Bei Chen had disappeared into thin air, which really made people worried. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Di Bei Chen's previous position. Her face flickered with a thoughtful look. Bei Chen should have already completed the pattern. Perhaps he has already entered the main hall. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Li Buyo and the others couldn't help but be stunned. Their eyes flashed with shock at the same time. They didn't expect Di Bei Chen's comprehension to be so high. This jigsaw puzzle was so complicated that many people didn't even have a clue. Even if they had a clue, they wouldn't be able to complete it in a short time. However, Di Bei Chen had already completed it. Li Buyo, Wan Yanling, and Bai Ying Tian couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Before, they only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most outstanding in this young team, but now it seemed that Di Bei Chen was absolutely not to be underestimated. Di Bei Chen only felt that he was wrapped in a mysterious power. When he saw everything in front of him, he was already in the main hall. Looking at the main hall in front of him, Di Bei Chen instinctively looked behind him. He found that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were not here. The door behind him also made him understand that after successfully piecing together the puzzle, he had indeed entered the main hall. After understanding this point, Di Bei Chen looked at the main hall in front of him. Chapter 40-70. The black mist continued to rise, giving off a mysterious and strange feeling. Di Bei Chen looked at the black pool with a complicated expression. If he had seen such a pool outside, it would have been extremely strange, but it seemed very normal here. Through the black mist, Di Bei Chen saw that there was a coffin behind the black pool. He walked towards the coffin behind the black pool. Thinking about it, it was very likely that the coffin belonged to the owner of the ruin. Standing in front of the coffin, Di Bei Chen stared at the pitch-black but heavy and luxurious coffin, and a trace of respect appeared on his face. Based on what he had seen along the way, he could tell that the owner of the ruin was definitely not an ordinary person. Although this inheritance was different from the ones he had seen before, and he had only seen the treasures he had seen before, and these treasures were all poisonous, he was certain that the owner of the ruin was definitely an expert. From the words of some seniors, he understood how powerful the power of darkness was back then, and it seemed to be very evil, which was why it was surrounded by many forces. In the end, the cultivators who grasped the power of darkness disappeared from this land. Evidently, he could not understand what had happened in the past, but he believed that just like how there were black and white sides to the world, not all cultivators who grasped the power of darkness were bad people. As such, he did not reject the power of darkness. No matter what kind of power it was, as long as it was used properly, it was good. Greetings, Senior. Di Bei Chen bowed to the coffin. I hope you can forgive me for disturbing you. There was no response from the palace, and Di Bei Chen did not mind at all. After all, he had come to the owner's place, and even if the owner was no longer in this world, he still had to maintain the basic respect. However, just as Di Bei Chen bowed his head in salute, he suddenly discovered that there was a line of very small words written on the coffin. If he hadn't happened to be here to salute, he was afraid that he would have directly ignored it. However, after seeing the words written on the coffin, Di Bei Chen was somewhat surprised. Those who came here, kowtow 3 times. These 8 words were simple and clear, but it was very strange. Inexplicably writing to make people kowtow, the temperament of the owner of this ruin was really different. Perhaps the owner of the ruins used to have a noble status, so he was used to everyone kowtowing to him. Even though Di Bei Chen was a little puzzled, he still did it out of respect for the other party. The other party might be a senior from hundreds of years ago, so it wasn't really taking advantage of him. After Di Bei Chen kowtowed 3 times, a message suddenly flashed into his mind, causing him to be stunned. Young man, you're very good. I like polite young people the most. You have passed my test and can now enter the black pool. As for how much you can gain, that will depend on you. Senior. Senior. After hearing this voice, Di Beichen tried to call out twice, but there was no response. It seems that this senior only left behind a single sentence. Little Xian nodded beside Di Beichen. Master, the water in this black pool should be a treasure, so let's not waste time, the others might come in at any time. Chapter 4071. Please enter the text. I wonder when Hong Zhuang and the rest will be able to enter. Di Beichen could not help but look at the tightly shut door. Obviously, this door was not meant to be opened at all. Only those who had completed the puzzle were qualified to enter. He could not help Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, so they could only rely on their own efforts. Mistress is so smart, she will definitely be able to enter soon. Xian Zi said with a smile. Hearing this, Di Beichen's eyes also showed a hint of a smile. In terms of perception, Bailey Hongzhuang was very powerful. Since he came to the ruins, he had a very familiar feeling, so his journey was very smooth. Perhaps, this ruin was fated to be with him. As Di Beichen walked into the black pool, he felt a strange power surging from the black pool and entering his body. This power was very similar to the dark power they usually felt, but it was somewhat different. The dark power he came into contact with in the past had a gloomy aura, just feeling it made people feel uncomfortable from the bottom of their hearts. However, the power in front of him was also dark power, but it did not have the gloomy and uncomfortable feeling. On the contrary, it actually had a sense of purity. After discovering this, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a strong sense of surprise. He did not expect there to be such a dark power, it was really amazing. Then, Di Beichen closed his eyes and began to absorb the energy in the black pool. He had already felt that the energy in the black pool was not harmful at all. On the contrary, it was extremely pure and was very helpful to improve his strength. Thinking about it, this should be the most precious thing in the ruins. After Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Di Beichen had successfully entered the main hall, she could not help but feel a little worried. The owner of this ruin had a very strange temper, no one knew what kind of checkpoint he would set next. If everyone was together, at least they could discuss a way to deal with it, but now Di Beichen went in alone. If he was in danger, it would be terrible. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang also sped up the piecing speed, but she did not lose her calm because of worry, because she knew very well that in such a situation, only by calming down could she exert the fastest speed. Li Buyo, Wan Yanling, and Bai Ying Tian all sped up. Di Beichen had already entered. If they were late, this inheritance might not be with them. After a while, another black light flashed, and then Bailey Hongzhuang's figure disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be stunned again. They did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be the second to enter. Beichen and Hongzhuang are really amazing. They are indeed husband and wife. The first one went in, and the second one followed closely behind. Sheng Guanying's face was full of amazement, and she could not help but feel a little happy. She knew very well that this inheritance would not fall into her hands. If this inheritance was obtained by Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, it would undoubtedly be best. Xiren also smiled and nodded. They are the inheritors of the two great abyss, of course they are powerful. Chapter 4072. When Bailey Hongzhuang entered the hall, she found that there was no one in the hall. Di Beichen was not there at all. She could not help but anxiously call out, "Beichen." When Di Beichen saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had come, his eyes flashed with surprise, and he immediately called out, "Hongzhuang." However, after he called out, he found that Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to see him at all. Seeing this, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with confusion. He could not help but stand up and wanted to go out to find Bailey Hongzhuang. However, after he stood up, he found that he could not walk out of the black pool at all. It was as if there was a force imprisoning him. Could it be that after entering the black pool, no one else can see me? Di Beichen murmured. Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance was as if she could not see his existence. At this moment, she was still looking for him. After thinking carefully, Di Beichen also understood. It seemed that this was specially arranged by the owner of the ruins. He did not understand before, but at this moment, he understood everything. Only cultivators who respected the owner of the ruins could enter the black pool to absorb the energy. On the contrary, if they did not find the trick, they would not be able to absorb the energy in the black pool. Bailey Hongzhuang called out twice but did not get any response. She could not help but frown in confusion. Why is Beichen not here? Could it be that his speed is so fast that he has passed to the next place? Or this is another small world. Maybe he is beside me, but I can't see him. This kind of method has always been used by the owner of the ruins. After Di Beichen heard Bailey Hongzhuang's muttering, his eyes couldn't help but light up. His wife was really smart, she had thought of this possibility so quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and carefully looked at everything in the hall. It was obviously useless to think about other things now. The most important thing was to find out what was special about this hall. However, after walking around the hall for a while, they didn't find anything special. There was only a black pool in front of them and a coffin behind them. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on the black pool. She could feel the energy in the black pool. It must be a great treasure. Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang walking to the side of the black pool and could not help but feel a little worried. Speaking of which, what he did before was just a coincidence. If Bailey Hongzhuang directly tried to enter the black pool, she obviously would not succeed. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to enter the black pool, her gaze once again fell on the coffin behind. I didn't expect the owner of the ruins to put this coffin together with the black pool. It seems that this black pool must be something very important to him. Bailey Hongzhuang muttered to herself. Until the end, he still had to look at the black pool. One could imagine how important it was to him. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but walk to the front of the coffin. She bowed and said, "Junior Bailey Hongzhuang greets Senior. This time Senior's ruins have appeared, Junior just happened to come here. If I have disturbed Senior, I hope Senior will forgive me." Di Beichen, who was in the black pool, saw Bailey Hongzhuang's actions and could not help but smile. Chapter 4073. After bowing, Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed the small line of words and immediately frowned in confusion. Kowtow 3 times. As Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, she could not help but look at the coffin in front of her. She was extremely astonished. Although the coffin was here and it was not too much to do so, the request of the owner of the ruins was really out of the ordinary. "Master, isn't the personality of the owner of the ruins a little too strange?" Xiao He looked puzzled. Although the other party was a senior, such a forceful request seemed to be taking advantage of his seniority. Yes, writing such a line of words to remind people to kowtow, this is really a little too much. Xiao Bai also could not understand. It was natural to respect one's senior, but such a request was indeed a little too much. Looking at Xiao He and Xiao Bai's expressions of disbelief, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and patted the two little fellows' heads. "Although the request of the owner of the ruins is indeed a little strange, we've come to his place after all, and we're standing in front of his coffin. It's actually not too much. Senior has already passed away, as a junior, it's only right for us to pay our respects." In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang kowtowed 3 times. She was very impressed that the owner of the ruins could leave such a ruin in this training ground. After kowtowing, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly changed and a strong sense of amazement flashed in her eyes. I didn't expect that entering the black pool would require such a test. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little lucky. She only thought that she should at least show some respect since she had come to the owner of the ruins. She did not expect that the key point was here, which was really surprising. "Thank you, senior." Bailey Hongzhuang bowed again, then turned and walked towards the black pool. After she walked into the black pool, Di Beichen's figure appeared in front of her. "Beichen?" Her light and pleasant voice was filled with surprise. "I didn't expect you to be here." Di Beichen revealed a joyful smile. "Yes, my wife." "Then why didn't you call me before?" Bailey Hongzhuang was puzzled. Di Beichen smiled faintly. "I tried to call out to you, but there's actually a restriction in this black pool. My voice can't pass through at all, so, I see." Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. "This is my master's test. If you can remind me, then this test will be meaningless." "Not bad." Di Beichen nodded. "I didn't expect it to be such a test. Fortunately, we succeeded in entering the black pool. This test is actually very simple, but I'm afraid there aren't many cultivators who can discover this point and complete it." Her ink-black phoenix eyes flickered with the light of contemplation. This was actually not a test at all. It was just a test of the cultivator's manners. If he had respect for the owner of the ruins, there would naturally be no problem. On the contrary, if he did not have such thoughts, he would not gain anything even if he turned the entire hall upside down. Chapter 4074. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully sensed the energy in the black pool. Although the pool water was black and gave off a very gloomy feeling, the energy that came into contact with it was extremely pure. It was an extremely rare energy. This kind of energy could be directly absorbed by cultivators. There was almost no need for them to circulate their techniques to refine it. It was truly shocking. Not only that, although the black pool did not seem very large, the energy it contained was extremely shocking. If a cultivator could absorb all the energy in the black pool, it would be extremely terrifying. I never thought that the energy in the black pool would be so pure. It seems that we have to hurry. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. This kind of opportunity was hard to come by. Although it would take a lot of time to put the puzzle together, it would probably be able to stop a certain number of cultivators from entering. However, it would only be a small part of it. With Wan Yanling and the others' intelligence, they would definitely be able to enter. Hence, the more energy they could absorb, the more they would be able to improve. This was undoubtedly extremely good. Di Beichen nodded. This situation is really suitable for Xiren and the others. It would be great if they could enter earlier. Now that when Xiren and the others were clearly weaker than them, if they could seize this opportunity to improve themselves, they would be able to ascend to the upper realm earlier. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face was filled with emotion. I really hope that their cultivations can quickly improve. Although Shangguaningying and Xiren had always appeared extremely calm, she knew very well that their strengths were originally about the same. Ever since they had returned from the demonic tower, there had been such a huge gap between their strengths. She believed that when Xiren and the others must have felt a certain gap in their strengths. I believe that they should still be able to enter. Di Beichen's extraordinarily handsome face was filled with a faint smile. His eyes shone with confidence. Although Shangguaningying was more impatient, based on his understanding of her over the years, he believed that Shangguaningying and the others would be extremely serious about this matter. With their level of comprehension, as long as they were willing to think about it carefully, they would definitely be able to piece the puzzle together. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't say anything else. Instead, they focused on absorbing the rich and pure energy. Not only that, but Little Xian, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and White Lion also entered the black pool. The energy was extremely beneficial to their strength. Sheng Guanying and the others stayed outside. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang disappear, everyone calmed down. At the very least, this proved that not only one cultivator could enter. As long as they worked hard and successfully pieced the puzzle together, they would have the opportunity to receive the inheritance. Sheng Guanying was originally a little impetuous, but after Di Beichen and Li Wuyo disappeared, she couldn't help but calm down. They were a team, and no matter what, they didn't want to be separated. At the same time, she didn't want the gap between her and Bailey Hongzhuang to widen. Mo Yinjue's eyes were still closed. Although he could sense everything that was happening around him, he didn't seem to be affected at all. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.